The morning started like any other morning on Harmony 7. Jiwon Kim sat in her office drinking coffee and looking at reports. The coffee was terrible like it always was on mining colonies, but she had learned to ignore the taste years ago. Outside her window, the sun was rising over the red mountains. Workers were already heading to the mines. Everything was normal. Everything was peaceful. Jiwon was 48 years old. She had been the administrator of New Busan Colony for 7 years now. Before that, she worked for the Earth Defense Force. She handled supplies and logistics. She never fired a weapon in her life. She liked it that way. War was something other people did. Her job was to keep 8,000 colonists safe, fed, and working. It was boring work most days. She preferred boring. The alarm came without warning. Red lights flashed across every screen in her office. A harsh sound filled the air. Jiwon dropped her coffee cup. It shattered on the floor. Her hands moved to the console before her brain caught up. She pulled up the defense grid. What she saw made her blood turn cold. Ships, 12 of them, large warships hanging in orbit above the colony. They had appeared from nowhere. No warning, no communication. Just suddenly there, like ghosts materializing in space. The computer identified them as Velkaran vessels. Jiwon had heard of the Velkaran Empire. Everyone had. They were aggressive. They were dangerous. But they were supposed to be hundreds of light years away. She reached for the communications panel. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe they were just passing through. She opened a channel and tried to speak. Her voice came out shaky. Before she could finish her sentence, the first strike hit. The power station exploded. Jiwon saw it through her window. A bright flash of light, then a massive fireball rising into the sky. The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Her screens flickered and went dark for a moment. When they came back on, half the colony had no power. The communications hub was gone too. Another explosion. Another piece of New Busan destroyed. People were screaming outside. Jiwon could hear them through the walls. She grabbed her emergency radio and started giving orders. Her voice was calm now. Training took over when panic tried to grab her. She told everyone to get to the underground shelters. She told the emergency teams to help the injured. She told herself not to think about how many were already dead. Lieutenant Dae-hyun Lee heard the explosions from the Marine barracks. He was 24 years old and had been stationed at New Busan for 2 years. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside. His 19 Marines were already forming up. They looked scared. Dae-hyun felt scared too, but he could not show it. He was their officer. The sky was full of fire. Orbital strikes were hitting the colony from above. Buildings collapsed. Streets turned into rubble. Civilians ran in every direction. Some were injured. Some were carrying children. All of them were terrified. Dae-hyun started directing people toward the shelters. His Marines spread out to help. They were not soldiers trained for war. They were security personnel meant to handle drunk miners and equipment thieves. But now they were all New Busan had. Dr. Sora Kang was performing a routine surgery when the alarms went off. She was 31 years old and had come to Harmony 7 because she wanted adventure. She thought a frontier colony would be exciting. She never imagined this. The hospital lost power. Emergency lights came on, casting everything in red. Then the casualties started arriving. They came in waves. Burned people, crushed people, people missing limbs, people screaming, people silent. Sora and her medical team worked frantically. There were not enough beds, not enough supplies, not enough hands. She operated by emergency lighting, her hands moving on autopilot. She tried not to think about the fact that more explosions kept coming. She tried not to think about the fact that the hospital might be next. Back in the command center, Jiwon made a decision. She pulled open a locked drawer in her desk. Inside was a small device. It looked simple. Just a black box with a single red button. When the colony was built, Earth Defense Force had installed it. They told her it was a quantum beacon. They told her it would send a distress signal faster than light itself. They told her she would never need to use it. They were wrong. Jiwon pressed the button. Nothing seemed to happen. No sound, no light, but somewhere, traveling through quantum space at impossible speeds, a message was racing toward every military installation within 50 light years. The message was simple. New Busan under attack. Hostile action. Immediate assistance required. The Velkaran dropships came next. They fell from the sky like metal rain. Daehyun watched them land in the colony square. Hatches opened. Soldiers emerged. They were tall, over 7 feet, covered in dark armor. They carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. They did not hesitate. They started destroying everything. Daehyun and his Marines took cover behind a collapsed building. They opened fire. Their bullets bounced off Velkaran armor. The aliens turned toward them. Energy bolts tore through the air. One Marine went down. Then another. Daehyun kept firing. It felt useless. They were so outmatched. But they had to buy time. Every minute they held the Velkarans here was another minute for civilians to reach the shelters. A Marine next to Daehyun grabbed a mining laser. They were meant to cut through rock. He aimed it at a Velkaran soldier and pulled the trigger. The beam hit the alien in the chest. The armor held for a moment, then melted. The Velkaran fell. The Marine grinned. It was not much, but it was something. They started grabbing every mining tool they could find. Cutting lasers, plasma torches, rock drills. Anything that might work as a weapon. The battle was brutal and desperate. Daehyun lost 6 Marines in the first hour, but they held their position. They kept the Velkarans away from the main shelter entrance. Blood and smoke filled the air. The lieutenant's hands shook as he reloaded his rifle. He was so tired, so scared. But he could not stop. Not while there were still people to protect. In orbit above the colony, Fleet Commander Rektar watched the destruction with satisfaction. He was the leader of this Velkaran battle group. He had chosen New Busan specifically. It was small. It was isolated. It was perfect for making a point. The Velkaran Empire wanted to show the galaxy that humans were weak, that their colonies could be attacked with no consequences, that the Velkarans were the true power in this sector of space. Rektar expected this to be over quickly. A few hours of bombardment, a quick ground assault, then they would leave and the humans would learn their place. He did not expect resistance. He certainly did not expect human Marines to fight back with mining equipment. It was amusing, really, pathetic but amusing. He ordered his ground forces to finish the job quickly. He wanted to be gone before any human ships arrived. What Rektar did not know was that a ship had already received the distress signal. The UEF destroyer Incheon was on patrol 3 light-years away when the quantum beacon activated. Captain Minho Park was on the bridge when the alert came through. He was 38 years old and had served in the Earth Defense Force his entire adult life. He read the message twice to make sure he understood it correctly. A human colony under attack. His orders were clear. The United Earth Forces had one rule that every captain knew by heart. When colonists are threatened, you respond. No matter the odds. No matter the danger. You respond. Park looked at his tactical display. 12 Velkaran warships. His single destroyer. The computer calculated their chances of survival at 7%. Park's executive officer looked at him. The question was clear in her eyes. Are we really doing this? Park nodded. He ordered the ship to maximum speed. He ordered all weapons armed. He sent one message back to Earth Defense Force Command before they entered the battle zone. The message was brief. Enemy contact. New Busan under attack. Engaging hostile forces. Then he added 3 more words. Send everyone available. The Incheon jumped to faster than light speed. Park sat in his command chair and waited. Around him, his crew prepared for battle. They checked weapons. They ran diagnostics. They said quiet prayers. They all knew the odds. They all knew they might not survive. But they also knew that somewhere below, human civilians were dying. And that was all that mattered. On Harmony 7, Jiwon Kim watched the sky burn. She had done everything she could. Most of the civilians were in shelters now. The Marines were still fighting. The doctors were still working. But the Velkarans kept coming. More ships, more soldiers, more destruction. She wondered if anyone had received her signal. She wondered if help was coming. She wondered if they would all die here today. Then something changed. Rektar's tactical officer called out a warning. A ship had just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. A human destroyer. Just one ship. Rektar laughed. One ship against his entire fleet? It was suicide. It was also insulting. Did the humans think so little of Velkaran power? He ordered 3 of his cruisers to intercept and destroy the foolish vessel. But something about that lone ship made Jiwon feel hope for the first time since the attack began. Earth had responded. Someone was coming. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned. They probably could not win. But they were coming anyway. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to protect your own. Juan pressed her hand against the window and whispered a prayer for the crew of that distant ship. They were going to need it. The Incheon cut through space like a bullet. Captain Minho Park watched the tactical display as his ship accelerated toward Harmony 7. The 12 Velkaran warships were clearly visible now. They were massive compared to his destroyer. His weapons officer calculated firing solutions. His engineer pushed the reactor to maximum power. Everyone on the bridge knew the mathematics of the situation. 12 against 1. These were bad odds. But Park had not joined the military to calculate odds. He joined to protect people. Down on that planet, humans were dying. That was all he needed to know. He opened the ship-wide communication channel. His voice was steady and calm. He told his crew what they already knew. They were going into a fight they might not win, but they were going in anyway. Because that was what the uniform meant. That was what duty meant. The crew responded without hesitation. Every station reported ready. Weapons loaded, shields at maximum, engines hot. The Incheon was a small ship with a crew of only 80 people. But in that moment, Park felt pride in every single one of them. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were ready. They were human, and humans protected their own. 3 Velkaran cruisers broke formation and moved to intercept. They were each 3 times larger than the Incheon. Their weapons had longer range. Their shields were stronger. Frichter watched from his flagship and smiled. This would be over in minutes. The human ship would be destroyed, and then he could finish dealing with the colony. It would be a good lesson for other species who thought about resisting Velkaran power. Park did not give them the fight they expected. Instead of charging straight in, he used every trick he knew. The Incheon was smaller and faster. It could turn sharper. It could accelerate quicker. Park used these advantages. He came in from an angle the Velkarans did not expect. He pushed the ship into a spin that made half his crew feel sick. But it positioned his railguns perfectly. The first salvo fired at maximum range. Railguns were Earth's preferred weapon. They were simple. They used electromagnetic fields to throw metal slugs at incredible speeds. No fancy energy shields could completely stop solid matter moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The tungsten rounds hit the lead Velkaran cruiser like hammers. The shields flashed and buckled. Alarm screamed on the alien ship. They had never faced weapons like this. The Velkaran ships returned fire. Energy beams lit up space. They were beautiful and deadly. The Incheon shields absorbed some hits. Others got through. Warning lights flashed across Park's console. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Casualties reported. But the ship was still flying. Still fighting. Park ordered another salvo. The railgun spoke again. The battle became a deadly dance. Park used every asteroid, every piece of debris, every advantage he could find. The Incheon was built for this kind of fighting. Human ships were designed by people who knew they might be outnumbered. They were fast. They were tough. They could take punishment and keep fighting. The Velkaran ships were built for honor combat. Ship against ship, broadside against broadside. They were not ready for human tactics. On Harmony 7, Lieutenant Daehyun Lee heard the sonic booms overhead. Something was happening in orbit. He did not know if it was good or bad. What he did know was that the Velkaran soldiers had stopped advancing. They were receiving new orders. Some of them started retreating back to their dropships. Daehyun used the moment. He ordered his surviving Marines to push forward. They had to save more people while they had the chance. Dr. Sora Kang was elbow-deep in surgery when she felt the building shake differently. Not explosions this time. Something else. Sonic booms from high above. She did not stop working. She could not stop. The patient on her table would die if she hesitated. But she allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe help had arrived. Maybe they would survive this day after all. In space, the Incheon was winning. Somehow, impossibly, it was winning. One Velkaran cruiser was already destroyed. Its reactor had detonated when a railgun slug penetrated to the core. The explosion was spectacular. The second cruiser was badly damaged and retreating. The third was still fighting, but its shields were failing. Park's crew worked like machines. Every person doing their job perfectly. Loading weapons. Managing power. Plotting courses. They were magnificent. But victory came with a price. The Incheon was dying. Too many hits had gotten through. Too many systems were damaged. Engineering reported the reactor was unstable. Life support was failing on 4 decks. The ship was not going to last much longer. Park knew it. His crew knew it. They kept fighting anyway. They had bought time. They had hurt the enemy. Now they just needed to hurt them a little more. Rektar was not amused anymore. He was angry. 3 of his cruisers sent to destroy 1 small destroyer. 1 was destroyed. 1 was crippled. 1 was barely holding its own. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy targets. Instead, they were fighting like cornered animals. Dangerous, unpredictable, and far more deadly than anyone expected. He ordered more ships to join the fight. 6 more cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward the human destroyer. Rektar would crush this pest with overwhelming numbers. Then he would make an example of the colony below. The humans needed to learn their place. They needed to understand that the Velkaran Empire could not be challenged. Park saw the new contacts on his display. 6 more ships. His damaged destroyer could not fight them all. He had done everything he could. It was time for the final move. He ordered all crew to evacuate. The escape pods were ready. People moved quickly and efficiently. No panic, no chaos, just trained professionals doing what needed to be done. Park was proud of them one last time. His executive officer tried to convince him to leave with the first wave. Park refused. He was the captain. He would be the last to leave his ship. It was tradition. It was duty. It was honor. He walked through the empty corridors one final time. His ship, his home for 5 years. He touched the walls gently. Then he headed to the last remaining escape pod. Before he left, Park programmed one final course into the Inchon's computer. The ship would accelerate toward the nearest Velkaran cruiser. Maximum speed. The unstable reactor would detonate on impact. It would not be a small explosion. Park climbed into the escape pod and launched. Behind him, the Inchon began its final run. The explosion lit up the sky above Harmony 7. The Inchon hit the Velkaran cruiser at full speed. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire that looked like a newborn star. The shockwave rocked every other ship in the area. Another Velkaran vessel took critical damage from debris. It began spinning out of control. 2 ships for the price of 1. Not a bad final score. Park's escape pod fell toward the planet. It was not a gentle landing. The pod hit hard in an open area near the colony. Park climbed out, bruised and dizzy. His ears were ringing. His leg hurt. But he was alive. He looked around and saw movement. Marines. Human Marines in damaged armor running toward him. Leading them was a young lieutenant. Daehyun Lee. Daehyun snapped a salute that was probably not regulation perfect, but it came from the heart. He welcomed the captain. Park returned the salute. Then he asked for a status report. Daehyun told him the situation. The colony was heavily damaged. Many casualties. But most civilians were safe in shelters. The Marines were holding the Velkarans back. Barely. They needed help. They needed it soon, Park nodded. He picked up a rifle from a fallen Marine and checked it. The weapon was functional. Good enough, he told Daehyun to take him to the command center. They needed to coordinate with whoever was in charge. They needed to prepare for whatever came next, because the Velkarans were not going to give up. They had committed to this attack. They would see it through. In orbit, Rektar stared at his tactical display. He had lost 4 ships now, 4 ships to 1 human destroyer. It was humiliating. It was infuriating. But it was also over. The destroyer was gone. Now he could finish this without interruption. He ordered his remaining ships to resume bombardment. He ordered his ground forces to advance. The humans had fought well, but they had lost, or so he thought. His tactical officer suddenly spoke up. There was urgency in the voice. Fear, even. He reported multiple contacts. Lots of contacts. Ships dropping out of FTL all around the system. Big ships. Small ships. Dozens of ships. No more than dozens. A fleet, a human fleet. And they were not here to negotiate. Rektar's blood went cold. This was not possible. No one could assemble a fleet that fast. No one could respond that quickly. But his sensors did not lie. Ship after ship appeared on his display. Destroyers, frigates, cruisers, battleships, carriers. They formed up in perfect military formation. And at the center, one ship larger than all the others. A dreadnought. The flagship of an Earth Defense Force fleet commander. A message broadcast on all frequencies. A woman's voice, cold, hard, absolutely certain. She identified herself as Admiral Hyejin Choi of the United Earth Forces. She said the Velkarans had attacked human civilians. She said they had 10 minutes to surrender their entire fleet. She said if they did not surrender, Earth would take the fleet by force. Her tone made it clear this was not a negotiation. It was a statement of fact. Rektar looked at his display again. His tactical officer gave him the numbers. 40 human ships to his remaining 8. 5-1 odds. Against him. Admiral Hyejin Choi stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Seoul. She was 52 years old and had served in every major conflict of the past 30 years. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with scars from a ship explosion long ago. Her eyes were cold and calculating. People called her the Hammer. Not because she was brutal, but because when she struck, the enemy broke completely. She had been in a meeting on Earth when the distress signal came through. New Busan under attack! She did not wait for orders. She gathered every ship within immediate reach and jumped to Harmony 7, 20 battle cruisers, 60 destroyers, 40 frigates, 12 carrier groups. It was not a rescue force. It was an invasion fleet, because Choi understood something that the Velkarans did not. Humanity did not do proportional responses. Her tactical officer updated her. The countdown was at 7 minutes. The Velkaran commander had not responded to the surrender demand. 8 enemy warships remained. Her fleet outnumbered them 40-8, 5-1. Choi had faced worse odds when she was the one outnumbered. Now the situation was reversed. She felt no sympathy, only cold calculation. On the planet below, Captain Park stood in the command center with Ji-won Kim. They were watching the fleet on long-range sensors. Park recognized the Seoul immediately. He had served under Choi years ago. He knew her reputation. He looked at Ji-won and said quietly that the Velkarans should surrender. Ji-won asked why. Park's answer was simple. Because Admiral Choi does not give second chances. Lieutenant Daehyun Lee watched the sky through his helmet display. He could see the massive fleet in orbit. So many ships, more than he had ever seen in one place. His Marines gathered around him. They were exhausted. They were hurt, but they were still alive. One of them asked if the battle was over. Daehyun shook his head. He said the real battle was about to start. In the Velkaran flagship, Rektar was trapped between pride and survival. His officers urged him to surrender. The numbers were impossible. But surrendering meant admitting defeat to humans, to a species the Velkaran Empire considered inferior. His career would be over, his reputation destroyed, his family dishonored. The countdown reached 5 minutes. Rektar made his decision. He would not surrender. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Choi. He told her the Velkaran Empire did not bow to threats. He said his ships were ready to fight. He said she should withdraw before she made a mistake. He tried to sound confident. He tried to sound strong, but his voice betrayed him. There was fear there, fear he could not hide. Choi listened to his speech without expression. When he finished, she responded. Her voice was flat, emotionless. She told him he had made his choice. She told him she would respect it. Then she ended the transmission. She turned to her weapons officer. Her next words were simple. All ships, full spread. Erase them. What happened next was not a battle. It was an execution. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. Every ship, every weapon. The coordination was perfect. Years of training and discipline showed in every action. Railgun salvos filled space. Missiles launched by the thousands. Energy weapons from the carriers lit up the darkness. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The Velkaran ships tried to fight back. They formed defensive positions. They activated their strongest shields. They fired everything they had. But it was not enough. It could never be enough. Human weapons hit them in waves. Each wave was timed to arrive at the same moment. Each wave overwhelmed defenses a little more. The Velkaran shields flashed, then flickered, then failed. The first Velkaran cruiser exploded after only 90 seconds. Its reactor went critical. The explosion was massive. Debris flew in all directions. The second ship lasted 2 minutes. The third made it to 3 minutes before its hull broke apart. One by one, the Velkaran fleet died. Their technology was good. Their ships were strong, but they were designed for honor combat. For single-ship duels, not for industrial warfare. Choi watched the destruction with no emotion on her face. Her crew worked efficiently around her, loading weapons, tracking targets, coordinating fire. They were professionals executing a mission. There was no hatred here, no anger, just cold determination. The Velkarans had attacked human civilians. This was the response. This was the consequence. Far from the battle, a small ship watched everything. It was cloaked, invisible to sensors. Inside, Ambassador Thelkis recorded the battle. She was an observer for the Galactic Council. Her species was insectoid. She had compound eyes that could see multiple spectrums of light. She saw the battle in ways humans could not, and what she saw terrified her. The Velkaran Empire had been a power in this region for 3 centuries. Their military was feared. Their technology was advanced. Their ships were considered some of the best in the galaxy. Thelkis watched them die in 12 minutes. 12 minutes to destroy a fleet that had conquered systems. 12 minutes to erase 300 years of military dominance. She made careful notes. The Council needed to know about this. On Harmony 7, everyone felt the shock waves. The explosions in orbit were massive enough to create pressure waves in the upper atmosphere. The sky lit up again and again. Dr. Sora Kang stopped her surgery to look out the window. She saw the lights. So many lights. Each one was a ship dying. She did not know which ships, but she hoped they were not human ships. She went back to her work. Rektar's flagship was not destroyed. That was intentional. Choi had ordered it disabled but intact. Human ships surrounded it. Precision fire took out its weapons, its engines, its communications, but not its hull, not its life support. The crew would survive. Rektar would survive, because Choi wanted him alive. She wanted him to stand trial. She wanted everyone to see what happened when you attacked humans. Marine boarding pods attached to the Velkaran flagship like parasites. Hatches cut through the hull. Human soldiers in powered armor poured inside. The Velkaran crew tried to resist. Some fought. Most surrendered. The humans were efficient. They were fast. They showed no mercy to those who fought. But they did not harm those who surrendered. In 30 minutes, the ship was secured. Rektar was found on his bridge. He was standing at his command station. His armor was damaged. His weapon was empty. He had fought until he had nothing left. The Marine commander approached him, told him he was under arrest, told him to surrender. Rektar looked around at his destroyed fleet, at his captured crew, at the end of everything he knew. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. They brought him to the Soul. Choi met him in the docking bay. He was tall. She was average height. But somehow in that moment she seemed larger. She looked at him with those cold eyes. She told him he would stand trial for war crimes. For attacking civilians. For murder. He tried to speak. Tried to explain. She cut him off. She said there was nothing to explain. Only consequences. Rektar was taken to a cell. Before they closed the door, he asked the guard a question. Why so many ships? Why such overwhelming force for one small colony? The guard looked at him. The answer was simple and delivered without emotion. You touched ours. That was all. That was everything. With the space battle won, Choi turned her attention to the planet. Her ships moved into position above New Busan, but they did not fire. Instead, they sent down medical ships, supply transports, engineering teams. The same fleet that had just destroyed 8 warships now began rebuilding what was broken, saving who could be saved. This too was part of the response. Destruction for enemies, protection for humanity. Ji-won Kim watched the relief ships land. Tears ran down her face. She had held herself together through the entire attack, through the fear, through the death, through the uncertainty. But now, seeing help arrive, she finally let herself cry. Park stood beside her. He put a hand on her shoulder. She was not alone. No human was ever alone. That was the promise Earth made to its people. Lieutenant Daehyun Lee and his surviving Marines helped guide the relief teams. Medical personnel took over from Dr. Sora Kang. Her hands were shaking with exhaustion. She had worked for 14 hours straight. She had saved dozens of lives, lost dozens more. A young medic from the relief ship told her to rest. She nodded. But first, she went to check on her patients one more time. She had to be sure Admiral Choi prepared her next message. This one would go to the entire sector, to every species within 100 light years. She wanted them all to hear, wanted them all to understand. She began recording. Her message was clear. Humanity does not start wars, but when attacked, Earth ends them. Any force that harms human civilians will face total destruction. There will be no negotiation, no mercy. Only overwhelming force. She ended the message with a warning. The Velkaran attack was a mistake. Let it be a lesson. Touch one human and you face all of humanity. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We protect our own. The message was transmitted on every frequency, every communication method. She wanted no one to miss it. Wanted no one to claim they did not know. In the Velkaran home system, their High Council received the transmission. They watched the footage of their fleet's destruction. They saw the power Earth had demonstrated. They saw their best ships turned to debris in minutes. The military commander asked what they should do. The council leader's answer came after a long silence. We surrender. Everything. The war that never officially started was over. The Velkaran Empire proud. 3 days after the battle, Ji-won Kim walked through New Busan. The colony was in ruins. Buildings stood like broken teeth against the sky. Streets were filled with rubble. Burn marks covered everything. But people were alive. They were working, rebuilding. Earth had sent construction crews, engineers, supplies. The colony would survive. It would take time, but it would survive. The final count was terrible. 1,247 dead. Nearly 2,300 wounded. Out of 8,000 colonists, almost half were casualties. Ji-won stood before the memorial wall. People were carving names into the stone. So many names. She knew most of them. Miners, teachers, children. All gone because the Velkarans wanted to make a point. Captain Park found her there. He stood beside her in silence for a while. Then he spoke quietly. He said he was sorry. Sorry he did not arrive faster. Sorry he could not save more people. Ji-won shook her head. She told him he saved them all. If he had not come, if he had not fought, everyone would be dead. His sacrifice bought time. Time for the fleet to arrive. Time for survival. Dr. Sora Kang had not slept properly in 3 days. She worked constantly in the medical center. Earth had sent hospital ships with better equipment, better supplies, better doctors. But she could not stop. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the wounded, the dying, the ones she could not save. A senior physician from Earth finally ordered her to rest. It was not a request. It was a direct order. Sora went to her quarters. She lay down on her bed. But sleep did not come easily. Her mind replayed the attack over and over. The explosions, the blood, the screaming. She wondered if she would ever feel normal again. If any of them would. This was not something you got over. This was something you learned to carry. Lieutenant Dae-hyun Lee was helping clear debris when he got the message. Report to the command center. He was dirty, exhausted. He had not changed his uniform in days. But he went immediately. When he arrived, he found Admiral Choi waiting for him. He tried to salute properly. She told him to relax. Then she told him why she called him. Dae-hyun was being decorated. Medal of Valor. For holding the line with only 19 Marines against overwhelming force. For saving civilian lives. For doing his duty when the odds were impossible. She pinned the medal to his chest herself. He did not know what to say. He was not a hero. He just did what needed to be done. Choi seemed to read his thoughts. She told him that was exactly what made him a hero. She also offered him something else. Officer training on Earth. A chance to become a real leader. A chance to prepare for the next time. Because there would be a next time. There was always a next time. Dae-hyun thought about his Marines. Thought about the ones who died. Thought about the civilians who trusted them to protect them. He accepted. He would train. He would be ready. The trial of Rektar took place aboard the Soul. It was not a long trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Medical records from Dr. Kang showing deliberate targeting of civilians. Testimony from Ji-won Kim describing the unprovoked attack. Video recordings from security cameras. Data from ship sensors. Everything painted the same picture. War crimes, murder, terrorism. Rektar sat in the defendant's chair. He looked smaller now, defeated. His armor was gone. His pride was broken. He tried to defend himself. He said he was following orders. He said he was demonstrating Velkaran strength. He said humans were expanding too fast and needed to be stopped. Admiral Choi listened to everything. Her face showed nothing. When he finished speaking, Choi delivered the verdict. Guilty on all charges. life imprisonment. He would serve his sentence watching the colony rebuild, watching humanity grow stronger, watching everything he tried to destroy flourish instead. That was his punishment. Not death, but seeing his failure every single day. Vrektar tried to speak. Guards took him away. The trial was over. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council met. Ambassador Thelkis presented her report. She showed the footage of the battle, showed the destruction of the Velkaran fleet, showed the overwhelming force humanity deployed. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species called humans barbaric, some called them dangerous, some called them necessary. Thelkis listened to the arguments. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. She said humanity was not barbaric. They were protective. She explained the difference. Barbaric species attack the weak for pleasure. Protective species destroy threats to ensure safety. Humans did not want war, but when forced to fight, they fought to win absolutely. To make sure it never happened again, she continued. The Velkarans attacked first. They targeted civilians. They showed no mercy. Humanity responded with overwhelming force, not out of cruelty but out of doctrine. They wanted every species in the galaxy to know, attack humans and the response will not be proportional. It will be total. This was not aggression. This was deterrence. And it was working. The council voted. The resolution was clear. Humanity's response was justified. The Velkaran Empire would face sanctions. They would pay reparations to New Busan. Their military would be reduced to defensive forces only. And any Velkaran ship entering human space without permission would be destroyed immediately. No warnings. No negotiations. Just destruction. The Velkaran representative tried to object. He was ignored. Back on Harmony 7, life slowly returned. Not to normal. Normal was gone forever, but to something new. Something harder. Workers rebuilt buildings with reinforced materials. The colony installed better defenses. A permanent military base was being constructed nearby. Earth made it clear. New Busan would never be vulnerable again. Ji-won Kim decided to stay as administrator. People asked her why. Why not leave? Why not go somewhere safer? Her answer was simple. This was her colony. These were her people. She would not abandon them. She would help them rebuild. She would make sure the dead were remembered. She would ensure their sacrifice meant something. Captain Park received a promotion. He was offered a position commanding a cruiser. Better ship, better assignment, more prestige. He turned it down. Instead, he requested transfer to New Busan's defense force. He would stay here, protect this colony, make sure what happened never happened again. Choi approved his request without question. She understood. Some debts could only be paid one way. Dr. Sora Kang established a trauma center at the medical facility. Physical wounds healed, but mental wounds lasted longer. Many colonists had nightmares. Panic attacks, depression, they needed help. Sora and her team provided it. Counseling, therapy, support groups. Slowly, people started to heal. Not completely, but enough to keep living. Enough to keep going forward. Throughout human space, changes happened. Every colony received upgraded defense systems. Every settlement got quantum beacons like the one that saved New Busan. Every outpost was connected to rapid response fleets. Earth's military budget increased dramatically, not because they wanted war, but because they wanted to prevent it. The best defense was being ready to respond with overwhelming force. Other species watched these changes. Some were relieved. Humanity was taking security seriously. They would be better allies, better partners. Some were concerned. Such military power in one species' hands was dangerous. What if humanity decided to use it aggressively? Thelkis addressed these concerns in her reports. She said humans had shown remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed the Velkaran homeworld. They did not. They wanted peace, but they demanded respect. 6 months after the attack, a ceremony took place at New Busan. A monument was unveiled. It showed the names of all who died. At the top were words chosen by Ji-won Kim. They were simple. They were powerful. They remembered the dead. They warned the living. The words read, "Touch one of us and you touch all of us. We are humanity. We remember. We respond. We do not forgive attacks on our own." Admiral Choi attended the ceremony. She stood beside the survivors. She placed a wreath at the monument. Then she spoke to the gathered crowd. She told them they had survived something terrible. something that should never have happened. But they survived, and their survival sent a message to the galaxy. Humans do not break. They bend, they adapt, they overcome, and they never forget. That night after the ceremony, Park and Ji-won stood together looking at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds, so much possibility, but also so much danger. Park asked if she thought it would happen again. Ji-won was quiet for a long time. Then she answered, maybe, probably, but next time they would be ready. Next time, Earth would respond even faster. Next time, the enemy would know what was coming. Lieutenant Dae-hyun Lee, now preparing to leave for Earth and officer training, visited the memorial one last time. He touched the names of his fallen Marines. He made them a promise. He would train hard. He would learn everything. He would become the kind of officer who could protect people better. The kind who could prevent attacks before they happened. The kind who would make sure their sacrifice was not in vain. Across the galaxy, species that had considered testing humanity's borders changed their minds. The footage of New Busan was everywhere. The destruction of the Velkaran fleet was analyzed by every military in known space. The conclusion was universal. Do not attack humans. Do not threaten their colonies. Do not test their patience, because humanity's response was not measured. It was absolute. It was overwhelming. It was final. The Velkaran. 5 years passed. New Busan was no longer the small mining colony it once was. The rebuilt settlement was larger, stronger, better defended. What was once a remote outpost had become a symbol, a place where humanity drew a line, a place where Earth proved what it would do to protect its people. Ji-won Kim walked the streets and barely recognized them. New buildings, new faces, new hope. The memorial still stood at the center of the colony, but now it was surrounded by gardens, trees planted by families of the fallen, flowers that bloomed in red and gold. It was beautiful. A place of remembrance, but also of life. Ji-won visited it every morning. She read the names. She remembered. She made sure no one forgot what happened here. Colonel Minho Park commanded the military base on Harmony 7. He had not left the planet in 5 years. His cruiser command was given to someone else. He did not regret it. This was where he needed to be. The base was impressive now. 20 ships, 5,000 personnel, defensive platforms in orbit, sensor arrays throughout the system. If anyone tried to attack New Busan again, they would face a prepared force. Park stood in his office reviewing intelligence reports. They were concerning. Some species were growing resentful of human power. 5 years ago, humanity was just another spacefaring civilization. Now they were considered one of the major powers. Their military was everywhere, their influence growing. Some species saw this as protection, others saw it as threat. Captain Dae-hyun Lee returned to Harmony 7 as a changed man. 5 years of training had transformed the young lieutenant into a skilled officer. He commanded his own company now, 200 Marines, the best equipment, the best training. When he stepped off the transport, Park was there to meet him. They shook hands. Park saw determination in the younger man's eyes. Good. They would need determination for what was coming. Dr. Sora Kang had become one of the leading experts on trauma treatment. Her work at New Busan was studied throughout human space. She trained other doctors. She published research. She helped establish trauma centers on other colonies. But she never left Harmony 7. This was her home now. These were her people. She had watched them suffer. She would watch them heal. The colony's population had grown to 15,000. New families arrived every month. They came knowing the history, knowing what happened. But they came anyway, because New Busan represented something important. It represented humanity's commitment. Earth does not abandon its people. Earth does not forget. Earth protects its own no matter the cost. Across the galaxy, the political situation shifted. The Velkaran Empire never recovered from their defeat. They were a shadow of their former power. But other species watched and learned different lessons. Some learned to respect humanity, to seek friendship rather than confrontation. Others learned to resent human strength, to fear human capability, to plot against human expansion. Ambassador Thelkis continued to observe humanity for the Galactic Council. 5 years of watching had changed her perspective. She no longer saw humans as just another species. She saw them as something unique. They were not the strongest, not the smartest, not the most advanced, but they were the most unified when threatened. And that unity made them incredibly dangerous. She wrote in her reports about the human concept of proportional response. Most species responded to threats with measured force. Attack their outpost, they attack yours. Destroy their ship, they destroy yours. Humans did not think this way. Attack one colony, face their entire military. Kill one civilian, answer to their whole species. It was not proportional. It was absolute, and it worked. Admiral Hyejin Choi was now Supreme Commander of all Earth Defense Forces. She oversaw the largest military buildup in human history, not because Earth wanted war, but because Earth wanted peace, and peace required strength. Enough strength that no one would dare test humanity again. Enough strength that the memory of New Busan would prevent future attacks rather than invite them. She addressed the graduating class at the Naval Academy every year. She always told them about New Busan, about Captain Park's sacrifice, about Lieutenant Lee's courage, about the civilians who died, about the response that followed. She wanted every officer to understand. They were not warriors for glory. They were protectors. And protection sometimes required terrible violence. But not everyone learned the lesson. Intelligence reports reached Park's desk about a coalition forming. 3 species who believed humanity's power needed to be checked. They were meeting secretly, planning something. Park shared the information with Choi. She was not surprised. There were always those who tested boundaries, who believed they could succeed where others failed. The coalition made their move 6 months later, not against a major colony. They learned that lesson at least, but against a small research station. Only 200 humans, minimal defenses. They thought it would be quick. They thought Earth might not respond so aggressively for such a small target. They were wrong on both counts. The research station sent a distress signal. Within hours, 3 Earth fleets converged on the location. The coalition forces found themselves facing 200 human warships. They tried to surrender. Choi accepted their surrender. But the price was steep. The coalition was disbanded, their military reduced, reparations paid, and their leaders stood trial just like Rektar had. The galaxy learned the lesson again. Do not test humanity. Do not attack their people. The size of the target did not matter. 200 people or 2 million. The response would be the same. Overwhelming, absolute, final. Some species called it excessive. Choi called it necessary. She would rather be called excessive than attend another memorial service for dead colonists. Back on Harmony 7, Ji-won Kim welcomed a delegation of new colonists. They were nervous. They had heard about the attack 5 years ago. They worried about safety. Ji-won showed them the military base, the orbital platforms, the response protocols. She told them the truth. Nowhere was perfectly safe. But human colonies were as safe as anywhere in the galaxy. Because Earth remembered, Earth protected, Earth responded. That evening, the leaders of New Busan gathered for dinner. Ji-won, Park, Daehyun, Sora, others who had been there from the beginning. They talked about the years that passed, the changes, the growth, but they also talked about the cost. The people who died, the innocents lost, the peace that required constant vigilance. Park raised a glass. He proposed a toast. To the fallen, to the survivors, to the future. Everyone drank. Then Sora added her own toast. To remembering, because forgetting the past meant repeating it. And they could never let New Busan happen again. Not here. Not anywhere. The others agreed. They drank again. Daehyun asked the question they all thought about. Would there be another attack? Would someone else test humanity? Park was honest. Probably. There were always those who did not believe, who thought they were different, who thought they would succeed. But each time, the response would be the same. Each time, the lesson would be reinforced. Eventually, everyone would understand. Jiwon looked around the table at these people who had become family. They had survived hell together. They had rebuilt together. They had learned to live with the memories together. She felt grateful, sad for what was lost, but grateful for what remained. They were still here, still fighting, still protecting. That had to mean something. The night ended late. People went home. The colony settled into quiet. Park did one final walk around the base before sleeping. Everything was secure. Sensors active, ships ready, personnel alert. If someone attacked tonight, they would regret it immediately. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, threats existed, but so did allies. So did hope. So did humanity's determination to protect its own. Admiral Choi sat in her office on Earth, late at night, reading reports, planning responses, preparing for threats that might never come, or might come tomorrow. She was tired. The years weighed on her, but she could not stop, could not rest. Because the moment she stopped being vigilant was the moment someone would strike, and she would not let that happen, could not let it happen. She looked at a picture on her desk, the memorial at New Busan. She kept it as a reminder of why she did this job, why she pushed so hard, why she demanded such overwhelming force. Because behind every military decision were real people, real lives, real families. They trusted Earth to protect them. She would not betray that trust. Ever. Ambassador Thelkis filed her final long-term report on humanity. After 5 years of observation, she had conclusions. Humanity was not going to fade, not going to become passive. They had found their place in the galaxy as protectors, as the species that responded to violence with overwhelming force. Other species could accept this, could work with humans as allies, or they could resist, but resistance would fail. Her report ended with a warning to the Galactic Council. Do not try to limit human military power. Do not try to force them into proportional response. They will not comply. And attempting to enforce such rules would only create conflict. Instead, accept the new reality. Humanity protects its own, absolutely, completely, without compromise. Work with this reality. Do not fight it. The council debated her report. Some agreed, some disagreed, but ultimately they accepted her conclusions. A formal declaration was issued. Human colonies were under Earth's protection. Any attack on human civilians would be.